Thank you, thank you. Wow. I'm very touched. Thank you so much. The first thing I want to say is congratulations to Charlie Kirk and TPUSA. This is an awesome, awesome thing to see. So I guess some of you have seen PragerU videos? Okay. We're very touched. We met a real need, the need to present unemotionally, intellectually, fairly, what you don't hear at college, which is, I'm sorry to say, most of the time, just the plain truth. So that's what we have done, and if someone would have said to me 5 years ago when we started that we would have 5 million views a year, I would have said, from your mouth to God's ears. This year we had 600 million views. And I'm not saying it because I'm proud of it. Oh, well, that's not true. That's part of the reason. I'm saying it because it's so clear we're filling a need. When I think about what you hear in your classes, I'll give you one example of how you know that you're not being told the truth. Just yesterday, someone was telling me that at their college in California, there are signs all over that it is forbidden to record what any of the teachers say in their classes. Is that not a giveaway that they are afraid that what they say may actually be publicized? I taught at college. That was my first career, a college teacher. And in those days, they used cassettes. You can see that at the Smithsonian Institute if you want to know what a cassette is. And they would record, but they always asked me out of politeness, Mr. Prager, is it okay if we record your class? And I remember thinking then, why could it possibly not be okay? What would I say to you that I would not want others to hear? But they're afraid. That's the only possible reason a teacher at a college would object to their class being recorded. They are afraid, and that means they know that they're a fraud. Because if you are genuine, you are not afraid that your genuineness be revealed. You should go into a class, teachers of America, and say, please record what I have to say. I want what I have to say to be heard by others. But they don't. They know it's not real, not true, not decent, not good, not sophisticated. They know it. There is no other explanation for banning a recording of what a teacher says in a classroom. Just so you will know, ask your teachers, go back and say, may I record? And if they say no, ask why. And they'll say, because it could be distorted. How can a recording be distorted? You record it too, Madam Teacher, Mr. Teacher, then it can't be distorted. So just know this is a giveaway that deep down they know they're not telling you the truth at campuses because they would be proud of what they say, as I was when I taught at Brooklyn College, City University of New York. So that's a giveaway. Okay, I have by definition limited time, and there's so much I would like to tell you. I want to bring to you my favorite word, clarity. I want you to be clear about what is happening in America today. We have in the United States, I've written about this, it's on the internet, so you can easily read it in greater detail. We are in a nonviolent, and I pray to God it remains nonviolent, civil war. There are unbridgeable gaps between left and right. And to put it in a nutshell, the left wishes to undo the American Revolution. Please understand, I've been broadcasting for 33 years. I took a vow in my first year of radio that I would never exaggerate. Forget never lie. But I knew that over time, if I got a reputation for exaggerating, people wouldn't take me seriously. And I've always thought in the long run that life is a marathon, career is a marathon, not a sprint. So I devoted myself to not exaggerating, whether it was a number or a reaction. I only say that so you understand. When I say the left wishes to undo the American Revolution, it is not a line to get you heated up and excited. It is literally true. And I want to prove it to you by explaining what we stand for. This is very important. You must be able to answer a fellow student what you stand for in between their sipping on a beer. All right? You have that much time to explain what you as a conservative stand for. So just say, do you have a penny or a nickel or a dime or a quarter on you? If you do, take it out, then you will know what I stand for. On every American coin is what I call the American Trinity. Christianity has a Trinity, America has a Trinity. The American Trinity is liberty, e pluribus unum, in God we trust. No other country on earth By the way, it would be very interesting. This is one of these moments that I would love somebody to do a comparison. I would like them to have a few thousand students on the left get together and a speaker just come up and say, you know, every American coin has what America stands for, liberty, in God we trust, e pluribus unum, and then see how much applause that would have gotten from left-wing students. Of course, you could have heard a pin drop, or there would be booing, because all three repulse the left. This is what you must understand. The left, and one other clarifying point. This will help you immensely in making converts, or at least making people aware of what you're fighting. We are fighting the left, not liberals. If you say that often enough, you will start to change people's minds. Liberalism has only one thing in common with leftism: big government. They have nothing else in common. That liberals don't know this is liberals' fault. It means that they are weak-willed and don't want to perceive reality because they have been brainwashed into thinking the right is their enemy, when the real enemy of liberalism is the left. There is such a man, by the way, and I would like to mention him by name, a professor of law at Harvard University, Alan Dershowitz. Alan Dershowitz is a liberal, and he hates the left. Liberals should all hate the left, because the enemy of liberalism is leftism, not conservatism. You must memorize that. You must not just memorize it, you must believe it, because you must understand it. And if you want the best example, to ask your relative, your friend, your roommate, your teacher, do you agree with all black dorms on campuses? If you do, you're a leftist. If you don't, you're a liberal. It is as simple as that. The essence of liberalism was racial integration. The essence of leftism is racial segregation. Do you understand that? The only people who would have supported a black dorm were Southern racists in the 1950s and leftists in 2017. They have everything in common, everything. We have nothing in common with the left or with racists, classical racists in American life. We have nothing in common with them. Virtually every university has a dormitory based on race. Harvard has black graduations. Black graduations. That's vile. That's pure, undiluted racism. So just understand, you must know how to make our case or we don't win. It is not enough to feel that we are right. You have to know why we are right and what it is that we are fighting. So, I said the left is undoing the American Revolution, and I took the American Trinity. We'll begin with liberty. The left has never been interested in liberty, with the exception of abortion. They have no desire for individual freedom. That is not what they have ever stood for, from Karl Marx to Vladimir Lenin to you name it, to the current Democratic Party, which is no longer liberal but leftist. They are not interested in liberty, they are interested in equality. So here's another nutshell idea. There were two revolutions at the end of the 18th century, the American and the French. They had very little in common, and the biggest difference between them was one affirmed equality and one did not. The French Revolution was for equality, the American Revolution was for liberty. Now, you'll say, but wait, the French Revolution said liberté, égalité, fraternité, liberty, fraternity, and equality. They were for liberty and equality. That's because they don't think clearly. You cannot have liberty and equality as equal values. The moment there is liberty, there is inequality. The only equality we believe in, and it's big, we believe in two equalities. We are all God's children, and we are all created in God's image, and therefore we are all equal. And we are all equal before the law. Those are the two forms of equality conservatives believe in. But they believe in equality of a result. And that must mean deprivation of liberty. Because, very simple, a shortstop in the major leagues makes more money than surgeons, or teachers, or priests, ministers, or rabbis. Is that fair? No. Who does more good for society? A good teacher or a good shortstop? The answer is a good teacher. But it doesn't matter. You don't get paid on the basis of what I think is doing good. That's totalitarianism. You get paid based on what people are prepared to pay for your skill. End of issue. So shortstops make 25 times more than I do, and I am totally okay with it. All right? The people who are not. There is a built-in violation of the 10th commandment on the left. Do not, what is it? Do not covet. Yes, that's it. The English word is covet. I was translating from the Hebrew. Do not covet. They covet for a living. The essence of leftism is to covet. There is something wrong that X has more than Y. Inequality, inequality. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it doesn't matter. The question is not, is everyone equal in terms of material wealth? It matters, does everyone have their basic needs met? The fact that there are people 500 times richer than you is irrelevant. It means nothing. It is a non-issue. The question is, can anyone who works hard, who has babies after getting married, not before getting married, can these people get ahead in America? And the answer is yes. That is what matters. Your campuses, every one of your campuses is an example of liberty being taken away, and the primary liberty is the freedom to speak. And it is being deprived of people on almost all of your campuses. It is an astonishing thing that it is so hard for a conservative to speak on a college campus. Just know, in a more conservative era, it was never hard for a leftist to speak on an American campus, even a Marxist. There is no comparison between left and right. They hate more than we do. They shut down opposition more than we do. There is no moral equivalence between left and right. I'll give you an example on the moral issue. I was just in San Francisco last weekend. I was there for a fundraiser for Prager University, and I was there to debate a man of the left. And I was brought in, interestingly, by two gay men, a gay couple who have two children. And these gay men are conservative. And one of them got up, and it was very powerful, and he said, it was much easier for me to come out as a gay in Mississippi than as a conservative in San Francisco. They are meaner than we are. They just are. And it plays itself out. I just was on Dave Rubin's podcast. Dave Rubin is gay. Dave Rubin has done videos for Prager University. And he says the same thing. He says, I am pro-choice, I am pro-same-sex marriage, and I am treated so much better by conservatives than I am by liberals and leftists, even though I share so many of their views. But I have dissented somewhat, and I actually believe that the conservatives may be right on some issues, and that was enough for him to be hated. Just know there's no moral equivalence between left and right. The reason they yell hate is because they hate. They have almost a monopoly on hate in America. That's the way it is. So that's for liberty. Next, e pluribus unum, from many one. This country is the least racist, multi-ethnic, multi-racial country in the history of the world. The reason is we don't give a damn. That's the beauty of it. We don't give a damn. I learned this as a Jew when I joined the Simi Valley Rotary Club in the late 1970s in my 20s. And I think I was the only Jew in the Simi Valley Rotary Club at the time. And the beauty was not, oh, isn't it wonderful we have a Jew? It was, who cares? That's the American. You're black? Who cares? You're Hispanic? Who cares? You're Asian? Who cares? That's the American response. The left racist response is, it matters. It matters. So you have this fraudulent claim, oh, I have 1/16 Cherokee blood. This, do you know, as a Jew, I am so afraid of such talk. The last people to go back 3 generations, 2 generations to see your bloodline were the Nazis. It frightens me. Her talk about her Cherokee high cheekbones frightens me. The left-wing talk about race frightens me. The last people who were obsessed with race were Nazis. Shame on the left. Shame on the left. We on the right do not honor race. We honor people. We honor character. We don't give a damn about race. That's the difference. I am not defined by my ethnicity or my race. I'm defined by my decency, my mind, my personality, my character, everything else except that. And they call themselves progressive. There is nothing more regressive than the left. It is the essence of regressive. That is, so our motto is from many one. That's it, from many, e pluribus unum. That's the second part of the Trinity. From many one. From black, from white, from mixed, from Indian, from Hispanic, from Native American. It doesn't matter. We're all American. That is a beautiful idea. Nobody has ever asked an American to abandon any part of the culture that they want to preserve. I went to a Hebrew-speaking Jewish school till I was 18, but I learned I am an American. I am an American. I learned about the ideal of the melting pot. The left hates the term melting pot. I love it. That is why America is strong, because we're all American. There is no American ethnicity. There is no American race. There's an American idea. That's all it is. And then in God we trust. That's the third part of the Trinity. And here I address frequently conservatives who are secular, who are our allies and our friends and some of the great minds of our movement. But they are mistaken. They think America could survive the death of God, and they're wrong. It can no more survive the death of God than it can survive the death of liberty. The founders understood this. Let me explain. I don't care if you're an atheist. An atheist can say that God is necessary for American society to survive. I'm not telling you you have to believe. I'm telling you you have to affirm the Judeo-Christian origins of our society, or we have no moral basis on which to continue. The founders understood this. This was a generation of wise people. They understood this. Here it's very simple. First of all, they understood what the Enlightenment rejected. They understood, as Judaism and Christianity and every sophisticated mode of thought until the Enlightenment understood, human nature is profoundly flawed. We are not basically good. For those who think we're basically good, just read a book on the Holocaust or on communist genocide, and then come back to me and tell me people are basically good. I can't think of a stupider notion, and if it offends any of you here, I'm sorry, but I do not retract it. There isn't a stupider idea post-Auschwitz, post-Gulag, than that people are basically good. The world is a problematic place because human nature is problematic. So, here's the question, the only question that civilization has to ask. How do we make people good? Doesn't mean, I don't believe we start out evil, we just don't start out basically good. I'll just answer the usual, by the way, I'll just answer the usual one on this one, and that is, oh, well, come on, babies. Come on, Dennis, aren't babies beautiful, adorable, and innocent? The answer is yes, they're beautiful, adorable, and innocent, but they're not basically good. No baby is altruistic. No, babies, basically, if they could speak, would say, I want mommy, I want nipple, I want this immediately, or I will ruin your life. That is what a baby says. No 3-year-old ever thought, I've been puking and pooping for the last 3 days. I'm going to give mom a night off to spend with dad. They don't think that way. We are born narcissists. The trick is to leave narcissism. Leftists' ideal is to keep you narcissistic. It is the antithesis of everything good. Therefore, how do you make good people? The Judeo-Christian answer is follow God's directives, like the 10 Commandments, like the Golden Rule, whatever it might be. Learn to be a good person, use the Bible to become proficient in ethics and morality, etc. If you drop that, you have a big problem. People have to be, please hear this, people must be accountable. They must feel morally accountable to something. It's going to either be the state or God. The United States was founded on the belief that the state must be small. But if the state is small, the God must be big. So that we're accountable to God. That's why when I was a kid, you never hear this term any longer. When I was a kid, they were still using the term to describe a wonderful human being. He is a God-fearing man. She is a God-fearing woman. If I said that on your campus today, people would think I had just come in from a time machine. It's never used. But that was the point. If you fear God, then you fear doing something wrong. You fear cheating. You fear embezzling, not to mention murdering or what have you. That is how the founders understood. That is why in God we trust is part of the American Trinity. Not in state we trust, not in government we trust, but the Democrats and the left believe in government. I was at the Democratic Party convention a few years ago where they announced, you could see it on the internet, they announced, the only thing we Americans all have in common is government. That's what they believe. One time it was believed we all had in common God. We all had in common the Bible. But now it's government. You can't have small government if you have small God. This was the way America was founded. That is why the government in Western Europe gets bigger and bigger and bigger as Western Europe gets more secular and secular and secular. They are related. This is the American Trinity. This is what we stand for. Liberty in God we trust, e pluribus unum. One more thing, and then I'd like to open up for questions and even comments for that matter. I don't restrict it to questions. There's another thing you need to know. And every day on my radio show, I have a national radio show, in case you didn't know, and I know a lot of you don't. No, I assume a lot of you don't, but I do. And I say every day that whatever the left touches, it ruins. I don't know of an exception to that rule, so I made a little brief list of what the left has touched and ruined. It begins with the university. The university has been ruined, destroyed, mocked, belittled, degraded by the left. It is no longer a place of learning. It is now a place of indoctrination, where you are taught nonsense. I remember I was at Columbia University in graduate school when it hit me. And it was a very powerful and depressing realization. Some of the brightest minds I ever met were teaching me nonsense. The biggest nonsense of all was that men and women are basically the same. This was already taught when I was in graduate school and when I was in college. One of the most absurd ideas to come up with, it makes G.K. Chesterton's famous line true. When people stop believing in God, they don't believe in nothing. They believe in anything. The university is a living example of believing in anything. There's no such thing as male and female. Do you understand that? Please understand, they say we're anti-science. Now let me review this without mockery, just by stating the facts, man. If you are born with 2 Y chromosomes, or is it 2 X chromosomes, and a uterus, and a vagina, and eventually have breasts, and eventually menstruate, but you say you're a man, you're a man. I am not mocking the people who have gender dysphoria. My heart breaks for them. For this tiny percentage of humanity that does not identify with their biological sex, life is a curse. My heart breaks for these people. I'm not talking about them to whom we must show compassion. I'm talking about the left that says there's no such thing as gender. You could have all the things I just described, but you're not a female. One of the leaders now in pediatrics in the United States, in the last Journal of Pediatrics, this woman, a pediatrician, wrote, "We should no longer announce at the birth of a baby it's a boy or it's a girl." Science has been perverted by the left. I would like to ask her something. If a dog were born, would you be prepared to say that it was a male dog or a female dog? Or would you wait until it identified with one of them later? And after all, aren't we animals? By the way, I will tell you, you could see it on the internet, look it up, Dennis Prager, How I Found God at Columbia. This is the truth. It sounds almost too good to be true, but it's true because I remember I told it at the time. So one day at Columbia, I was walking around the campus, just overwhelmed by the amount of drivel I was taught. This is not new to your generation. It started way back. And not just that men and women are basically the same. I was in international relations at the School of International Affairs. And I was taught by every professor that the Cold War was equally responsible two parties, the United States and the Soviet Union. It's unbelievable, but that's what I was taught. So all of a sudden, Hebrew came to my mind, because as I said, half the day I studied in Hebrew from kindergarten to 12th grade. And one of the statements in the book of Psalms came to my mind, and out of nowhere, that was what was so amazing. It came out of nowhere, and I got the answer that has guided me in my understanding of life since. And it was, Reshit Chochma Yirat Adonai, wisdom begins with fear of God. And then I realized, I know why there's no wisdom at Columbia, because there's no God at Columbia. And I contend that to this day. You can be brilliant without God, but there is no wisdom without God. Our society is an anti-wisdom society. Believing people are basically good is anti-wisdom. Religious people know that we're not basically good. Religious Christians and religious Jews, we read our Bible. It's you know, don't trust the heart. The Bible has contempt for the human heart. The left loves the human heart. Oh, how do you feel? How do you feel about it? How do you feel about it? The Bible says don't follow your heart. You'll prostitute yourself if you follow your heart. It knows. That's wisdom. Wisdom is don't trust your feelings. My son who is here, I feel funny because he's such an accomplished man, and I'm telling a story from when he was about 2 or 3. But that's the price you pay for being a child once. And anyway, he was thrown down by a 5-year-old in a park in Los Angeles where he grew up and where I live. And his mom, I wasn't there, his mom was, and she saw this and she tells the story that the mother of the boy who threw my son down, it was basically a toddler or a baby, ran over to her son, and this is what she said. What's troubling you, darling? What's troubling you? The kid just threw down a baby and she's asking what troubles him. That's sophisticated. That, I know nothing about that woman. I never met her. But of this, I am certain. She went to graduate school. That response is a learned response. It is such a stupid and harmful response, you had to learn it. Because the natural thing is to smack the kid in the face, which is what should have taken place at that moment. That's what should have been. You will never do that, ever. Your name is mud in the house. I don't care what's troubling you. I care that you threw down the kid. We'll figure out what troubles you after you become decent. This is the antithesis of leftism. It's the antithesis where it is all, how do you feel? How do you feel? How do you feel? How do you feel? Here's a line for you that is important. There are 8 billion people on Earth. Of the 8 billion, maybe 1, perhaps 2, care how you feel. The other 8 billion only care how you act. That is wisdom. All right, so the university has been ruined. The military, I don't have to, they don't want us to have the strongest military in the world. They don't even believe in having a military. They're basically pacifists. If we should negotiate. See how well the negotiations went with North Korea? See, they're just a perfect example. How well the negotiations went in Munich with Hitler. Negotiations have a great history of confronting evil. When you confront evil, you better be stronger than them or evil prevails. That's it. That is the rule of life on Earth. It's not the rule of life on your campus, but it is the rule of life on Earth. I already told you how the left has poisoned race. Barack Obama left office with far more racial tension in this country than when he entered. He fomented racial tension. There's a reason. There's a reason the left foments racial tension. They're not stupid. They're bad, but they're not stupid. They're not wise, but they're not stupid. There's a reason. Because every black American who says, I am happy to be an American, is a potentially lost vote for the Democratic Party. But it's not just true for blacks. Every woman who says, I am grateful to be an American, is a potentially lost vote for the Democratic Party. Every Latino who says, I am thrilled and grateful to be an American, is a potentially lost vote for the Democratic Party. The left cultivates rage and ingratitude. They cultivate it like farmers cultivate wheat. The left cultivates ingratitude and anger. A non-angry woman has a name, Republican. The left has essentially ruined the arts. I know a lot about the arts because I have an avocation. I conduct symphony orchestras. And I know a lot about, certainly, music. The left has basically ruined classical music because they believe that it is not important to have melody or harmony and certainly not tonality. In the graphic arts, they do not believe in beauty. Do you know what permeates the great museums of the world now? Scatological art. Scatological is the fancy word for poop and urine, for what the body expels: vomit, menstrual blood, urine, and fecal matter. One of the most prestigious sculptures in Germany won a big award, was a sculpture of a German policewoman crouching and urinating, and I don't know why a policewoman, but it was, and the puddle is also sculpted. At the Guggenheim Museum, one of the most sophisticated museums on earth, run, needless to say, by the left, the newest exhibit is an extremely expensive, all gold toilet bowl. But I'm not done. You, for a price, can use it. You can urinate in it, and you can defecate in it. And do you know what the name of the exhibit is? America. You can shit on America at the Guggenheim Museum. Don't boo it, fight it. Fight it. Whatever they touch, they ruin. So they made war on the Boy Scouts because the Boy Scouts had a policy that they didn't care if you were gay, but if you announced you were gay, they thought that that might lead to problems in the environment that they have. Maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong, but they have ruined the Boy Scouts. And I had a challenge to the left. Since you think the Boy Scouts are so homophobic and bigoted and unenlightened, why don't you start a left-wing Boy Scouts? But they never do. The left builds nothing but government. They destroy, but they build nothing. There is no left-wing Boy Scouts. That's the whole point. They don't have a way to make boys into men. They're not interested in making boys into men. They have poisoned the fight against evil. Whoever fights evil, the left fights them. The left doesn't fight evil. The left fights statues. The left fights carbon emissions. But it doesn't fight evil. Never did, never will. It's not interested in evil. During the Cold War, communism, which killed more people even than the Nazis, communism killed 100 million civilians, not 100 million in combat, civilians. It is the torture chamber of earth, communism. It is not well known, and it needs to be well known. Because the left writes history, it's not well known. We only think of the Nazis, who were quintessentially evil, obviously. So they were not pro-communist. Well, many leftists were, but not the whole left, but they were all anti-communists. They hated anti-communists, just as today they're not pro-Islamist terror. They're not pro-Islamofascism. They are against the fighters against Islamic fascism, which doesn't mean all Muslims are fascists any more than Catholic fascism meant all Catholics were fascists. It's a straw man lying argument. Of course, most Muslims aren't fascists, but there is an Islamofascism today, just as there was a Catholic fascism in Croatia in World War II. That's the way it is. That's truth. They fight the people who fight evil. They hate us for fighting evil. So they cheapen the battle. That is why when they call Donald Trump a white supremacist, what they are doing is cheapening the battle against real white supremacy. He is not a white, he's as much a white supremacist as I am an aardvark. It's an absurdity, it's a lie. I went on CNN. I go on CNN in spurts, like very often and then never, then they realize, I don't know what they realize, but I still don't know what they realize. But in any event, I was on, you could see it on the internet, everything is on YouTube, except 40 Prager U videos. Anyway, I was on and I said, you know, here at CNN and at the New York Times, you all said that all of these bomb threats to Jewish community centers was typical of a great rise in anti-Semitism in America since the election of Donald Trump. I said at the time, as a Jew, as an author of a book on anti-Semitism, a guy who fought anti-Semitism his whole life, this was a colossal lie of the left. He did not bring anti-Semitism to the fore, Donald Trump. Anyway, it turns out, what turned out? 90% of the bomb threats to Jewish community centers came from a mentally disturbed Jewish kid living in Israel, and the other 10% came from a radical black who wanted to frame his ex-girlfriend. Not one came from a white supremacist. And so did CNN apologize? Did the New York Times apologize? Here's something I wrote 35 years ago. Being on the left means never having to say you're sorry. I got that from a movie. All right, one final word, then I'm going to open up for Q&A. So here's my final word to you. And this is really directed to you individually. There are many, many good traits: kindness, honesty, loyalty, integrity, decency. But the greatest of all the good traits is by far the rarest, and that is courage. Somehow you need to summon up courage. You are among people who share your values in this wonderful convention center, but you're not when you go back to the university. You're pretty lonely, probably. So it takes courage to state, yes, I'm a conservative. I would like to conserve the values of the finest country that has ever been devised with all its flaws. That is correct. So you have to summon courage. A woman called my show a few years ago and she said, my daughter is at, I don't remember what university, and she knows that she will get a lower grade if she writes what she believes as a conservative. What should I tell her? So this is what I told the mother. I said, look, you'll tell her what you want. You're her mom, I'm not. But since you asked me, I would tell your daughter this, that if you compromise on what you believe for a grade at the age of 20, when will you stop compromising on what you believe? I know I know it is easier for me to say because I'm not at college. Although I will tell you, I did this at college and probably suffered for it, but it doesn't matter to me. The grades you get in college, this has nothing to do with left or right, but I'll just talk to you human for a moment. The most overrated part of your life is what college you go to. Let me tell you a little story about me, because I am, thank God, I'm only using me because I've had a lot of career success. And one day I noticed people ask me anything. They've asked me about my wife, about my divorce, about everything about me, because I'm very open on the air. And sometimes it's difficult, but I've always felt the more my listeners knew me, the more they trusted me. There is one question I have never been asked in 33 years of radio. Dennis, what college did you go to? Why is that? Why does no one give a damn? I'll bet you not one of you wondered, gee, I wonder what college you went to. Now, I mentioned Columbia because it was part of a story, and that was graduate school, it wasn't undergraduate. I went to a non-prestigious undergraduate school named Brooklyn College. But the prestigious are worse than the non-prestigious, so it doesn't matter, it's irrelevant. Anyway, my only point is, don't be seduced by, I need a good grade, so I'll compromise on my values because I got to get into a good graduate school. That's not what you're measured by in life. Please know that. I know it's advantageous to making a good living immediately out of college to have a prestigious name of an alma mater. I know that, so you'll make that much more money later, not immediately, but you will keep your character. You will keep your convictions, and you will look in the mirror and say, I didn't compromise. We will only win if we fight, and we will only fight if we have courage. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. God bless you. Thank you. Are we going to take, please have a seat. Thank you again. I'm very touched by your reactions. Oh, by the way, I never in my life pushed a book. I've written 7. I've never mentioned one at a speech. This, however, you will admit I didn't write to get rich. I wrote because I am crazed about the biblical illiteracy in the country and how people don't know how to answer questions about God. On April 2nd, my commentary on one of the first 5 books of the Bible, Exodus, is coming out. You can pre-order it at Amazon. I feel very self-conscious telling you, but I know I didn't write it to win money. I wrote it because I am worried about the death of God and the death of the Bible in our civilization. But if you read it, you will be proud to say, I am a Christian or I am a Jew. You will be intellectually and morally proud. Okay, it's called the Rational Bible. Okay, are we having are people coming up? Do we have a microphone for you? Because otherwise what's the story? Will, I'm looking for Will. Oh, okay, somebody have a mic? Is somebody lining up or somebody getting a mic? Okay, go ahead, yes. Hi. Not hi. So you're showing me a mic, but not a speaker. Okay, all right, here we go.
Hi.
Hi.
So I think that even though the leftist media doesn't want to recognize that Trump's done a pretty good job at turning around our economy in the few months he's been in the presidency, is it possible to dig ourselves out of $20 trillion of debt?
Yes, it's totally possible, but Americans need courage. I'll just give you one example. This really does trouble me, including for Republicans, that the Social Security age is 65 is a farce. When it was enacted in the 1930s, people died at 64. People die at 94 today. So isn't it obvious you're supposed to raise the age? You know what I say when I go to your campuses? Sometimes I open up and I say, you know what? I just want to thank all of you here for footing the bill for my generation. You are the most generous generation in American history. Because it's so selfish not to change the retirement age. It's so selfish to keep spending money that we don't have and it's off your backs. You know, I don't want you to be selfish, but you have to worry about you too. I worry about you more than you worry about you. You're going to grow up in an America that will go bankrupt. You're going to grow up in an America that doesn't know the difference between male and female. Do you know in New York you can't say ladies and gentlemen on the intercom at the New York subway? That's right. They no longer say ladies and gentlemen in the announcements, lest they imply that there are only ladies and gentlemen here. Do you know that school teachers in Charlotte, North Carolina have been told, do not call first graders boys and girls? You can't impose a gender identity on first graders? This is what your generation is inheriting from the left, not just financially, but in every other arena of life. You should worry. Oh, what could we do? Spend less. That's the answer. We spend less. Period. End of issue. That's the answer to the debt. Anybody have a mic? I can't call on you because somebody's giving around a mic, right? You here? All right, we have a lot of hands here. Over there? Yes, please.
Hi, how are you?
Well.
Good. I'm a current student for elementary education, and I have seen multiple red flags in my recent studies, and I would quickly like to explore one and hear your thoughts. Dipping into the social context of education, specifically about diversity, my textbook discusses 3 contrasting theories of diversity.
Your textbook discusses 3 theories of contracting labor?
Diversity.
Oh, diversity,
Theories
yes.
about diversity.
Okay.
And the one specifically that my textbook firmly believes in and advocates for is called cultural difference. And quoting from the textbook, academic failures of students from diverse backgrounds cannot be attributed to perceived disadvantages existing within a culture. Instead, school failure results principally because there is a mismatch between student cultures and the cultures of the schools themselves. I wanted to know your thoughts on that.
It means nothing. It means you can't blame a kid for not working hard and failing. That's what it means. That's what the subtext is. Do you know what the left has done to minorities? Not all, because some minorities, thank God, don't buy it. Some members of minorities. Have any of you ever heard of Ebonics? Oh, I'm surprised you did. I thought it died out. But Ebonics comes from ebony. Ebony means black. So if a black says, I is going, it's not wrong. It's Ebonics. It is a dialect, perfectly legitimate dialect. What they did was they said to blacks, you do not make grammatical errors. Whites can make grammatical errors, but blacks cannot. The contempt for other races on the part of the left is so profound and so obvious, I don't know how anyone can deny it. If you don't work hard, you don't get ahead. Period. End of issue.
Thank you.
Am I supposed to call, or are you walking to people?
This is the last question.
Last, oh, too bad. Okay.
First of all, Mr. Prager, thank you so much for speaking to us and inspiring young teens to know the truth about everything.
Right. Thank you.
As someone who frequently debates leftists, and knowing that they constantly shut out anything to do with conservative ideas, what is one thing that you can say to someone who you know believes in those ideas that will get them to open their minds to what you have to say?
Well, it is, yeah, that's right. Give them a coin. That's good. Yes, liberty, e pluribus unum, in God we trust. I would ask them. It's a very interesting thing. I think the most obvious Achilles heel of the left is race. Say, do you think it's American, and do you think that it is immoral to have race-based dormitories? And that's a good way to open discussion. I think that would be, a fair opening. But I gave you this entire list. That, you know, I hope, I'm sure that there'll be available a recording of this. So you can, I debate, should I put a ton of information in a talk or not? And I always think it's better to do so. But they're easily defeated if you know how to do it, because I've done this for a living. So, you know, I wake up debating leftists. I shower with leftists in my brain. And one of the things you will always find is that they change the subject as soon as you raise a powerful point. Never let them change the subject. And one final word that really has been helpful in my radio. I have a motto: I prefer clarity to agreement. I don't try to defeat listeners who argue with me. And it has been unbelievably helpful. What I say is, hey, listen, Jerry, I don't want to win the debate. It's not what I'm here to do. I just want to clarify where we differ. Do that with friends, relatives. It's very unaggressive. It means you don't want to win, but you do want to clarify where we differ. So I just want to understand, you think it is American and wholesome and good to have race-based dormitories, and I don't. Okay, so there you know. There's a good example of where you know where we differ. And for anybody who argues about American imperialism and uses that term, ask them, why did we fight in Korea? You know that we lost 37,000 Americans? 37,000 Americans died to keep South Korea from becoming like North Korea. North Korea is a giant concentration camp. It's a starvation camp. 37,000 Americans died to keep half of the Korean peninsula free. I now drive a luxury Korean car. It's not made in North Korea. It's made in South Korea. Because those 37,000 Americans died. Did we die for oil? There's no oil in Korea. Did we die for any natural product? There's no gold in Korea. There's no copper or uranium in Korea. We died in Korea so that they could be free. What other country does that? Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Lily. Thank you, thank you.